Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to this Joint Audit and Standards Committee. I'm Councillor Bryn Harron and I'm chairing the meeting today. I first of all remind you of some domestic arrangements. Please ensure that microphones are turned off when not in use, that you do not interrupt other speakers, that if you are attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt, you may be asked to leave. Please ensure your mobile phones are on silent or switched off. Additionally, we'll be using e-voting for this meeting on the Modern Gov app. I would like to remind everyone present this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the Council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting as a speaker, you are also consenting to being recorded by the Council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. If you are intending to do so, please could you inform the committee clerk. Now, officers in attendance today, we don't have Melissa Evans, I'm afraid. She has sent her apologies, but we do have David Fevier-Ward, Head of Finance, John Snell, Head of Internal Audit, and also Bethany Webb to my left, the Lead Governance Officer, who will be clerking the meeting today. We also do have Janet Pearson, Portfolio Holder, who may wish to comment on things, and I will allow her to do so. Right, to kick the meeting off properly, I'm sorry for being about 2 minutes late. I've had to have a quick service on my computer, which has let me down last time. But all cooking on gas now, we hope. Apologies, absence and substitutions, please, Bethany.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Mary McLaren and also our independent member, Julie Price.
Yes. To receive declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests by members. Do we have any? No. To confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of August, which was chaired by my colleague, Councillor John Matheson's. Anything? Yes, Councillor Baker, please.
Thank you, Chair. 19.7 on page 9, it's got Councillor Baker questioned whether growing concern ratios, the term is going concern. It's a going concern, G-O-I-N-G, not a growing concern. It's a financial term. So it needs adjusting.
And that was David gave that report. Yeah, David, could you comment on that, please?
So it was just about you wanted confidence about that we are a going concern.
Yeah, no, there's an error, that's all. It's just a spelling. What they've done is at 19.7, they've written the word growing concern ratios, when actually what we were asking about was going concern, right, which is a financial term. So it's G-O-I-N-G instead of the word of growing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, that's accepted.
That's just spelling.
I think it's just an update to the minutes.
Yeah, it's just a correction in the spelling. That's all.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Baker. We did touch on that in the briefing, yes, so it has been noted. Anything else appertaining to the minutes? No.
Let's propose the minutes.
Yep. Proposed by Councillor John Matheson. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor John Whitehead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Riley, do you want me to take your vote verbally for the minutes?
was an abstention, not here last time.
Good morning. As I was focusing on turning off my telephone, what do you require me to do?
You'll vote on the minutes. Can I take it verbally, please?
Yeah, of course.
And which way are you voting?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I was suggesting, Councillor, suggesting that you might abstain as you were not here for the meeting, which is the usual procedure.
I'm happy to abstain. I was going to abstain anyway. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. There is 7 votes for and 2 abstentions, so that's carried.
Thank you very much. Notification of petitions
None received, Chair.
and questions by the public.
None received, Chair.
Questions by councillors.
None received, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, we move on to the meeting now. Item 7, JAC 2513, which is the half-year report on Treasury management. Can I call on David Fevier Ward, please, just to introduce this report, which will then be open for questionings.
Thank you, Chair. The half-year Treasury report provides a comprehensive review of the Treasury management activities for the councils during the first half of 2025-26. It ensures compliance with the SIPFA Code of Practice and supports strong governance and transparency. The key recommendations for the paper are that both councils note the Treasury management activity and compliance with the indicators. And all of our activities were in line with the approved strategies and all indicators were met, which is fantastic. In terms of the first part of the year, we have focused on repaying short-term debt and maintaining affordability as where we can. So in Babel, we've reduced the debt from 125.7 million to 116.4 million as at the 30th of September. And in Mid-Suffolk, we reduced borrowing from 106.9 million to 93.4 million. And Mid-Suffolk now only has one short-term loan of 5 million. The rest are all long-term, is all long-term debt. Sorry, excuse me. In Babel, total investments decreased slightly to 10.3 million, and in Mid-Suffolk, total investments decreased to 16.8 million. And we are still generating good returns from the pooled funds. Mid-Suffolk, of course, having sold the Schroeder fund in the first half of the year. I'm pleased to say that we've had full compliance across all of our indicators, which is a really good position for us to be in. Thank you.
Just a couple of points, David. My normal hobby horse, 11.1, ESG. We are keeping tabs on that, I hope. I presume nothing has come up because we've not been asked to authorise any movement. So position is as was, I take it?
Yep, position is as was.
No golden nuggets of opinion?
No.
Okay. And the second one, just a general question. We are moving into slightly lower interest rates, aren't we? 0.25% cut 2 months running, and maybe another one to come. I presume that will help the financial position a little bit, given that we borrow more than we loan out. Is that correct?
So there is news in the media around an expected interest rate cut. We can't comment on because that's not been confirmed yet, and it is just noise in the media. We have recently seen actual interest rates on short-term borrowings start to increase in the inter-authority lending market, so the intelligence that we've had from our brokers. So interest rates are actually probably around 4.5% as average for new debt going forward. So if there is an interest rate cut, then we should start to see that decrease and come down closer to 4%.
So you're saying even though the bank rate is going down, we're being charged more for some loans, is that correct? It seems to be opposite to what I would have expected.
Well, we haven't taken any of those loans yet, but that's just the intelligence that we're seeing in the market in terms of what offers are available.
Okay. All right. Questions from the committee, please. Yeah, Councillor Marriott to kick off.
Hello, Table 1, page 17, Mid-Suffolk District Council. I just wondered if anyone could explain to me why the Mid-Suffolk HRA, why there's such a large movement forecast of 12,500. Okay.
Borrowing from
Yes.
Suffolk, are you?
Yes, financing and borrowing.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Would it be okay if I took that away, just so I can get you a more detailed response?
Yes, please.
That's fine.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Dowling, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at page 23, which is in the section about trading companies. And as you can probably guess, I'm going to ask my now standard question about Baber growth. We've been told for some time, at least 6 months, that there is discussion with Ernst & Young about over what length of period the debt accrued by Baber growth can be spread. We still don't seem to have an answer. When do you anticipate getting an answer from Ernst & Young on this matter, please?
So we have asked and have chased up. We haven't had a response on it yet. We do have the advice from Arlene Close around spreading that over a longer period of time. But because Ernst & Young are more focused on 24-25 at the moment, I don't anticipate us having a response until we get into the 25-26 numbers, which is where the Baber growth expected credit loss will actually hit our accounts. So we will get a response and we'll keep chasing it up, but we haven't had anything yet, I'm afraid.
Sorry, I mean, forgive me, I'm not a financial expert. Is it not just quite a simple answer? Why is it taking so long to produce a yes or a no?
I don't think, unfortunately, it isn't quite as simple as we would like it to be. And again, because we haven't needed to account for it in 24-25 yet, they're not focused on that just yet. So I will chase up again just to see if we can get a response on it, and I can update the committee as and when I do have that.
Yeah, I think Councillor Dowling, it may be we don't know how many houses have actually sold yet and what the price will be. So is it correct we need to bottom that out first, David? You're talking about the Cook's Lane site, are you not?
Well, that's the principal, what word can I use, burden on Baber growth at the moment. So ultimately, yes, I guess it does depend on how many units you can sell and for how much. But isn't this a question of principle, actually? That's why I wonder whether it's a simple answer. Can we, or can we not, spread the debt, however large it is, over an extended period, over the life of the asset, as we were told? I would have thought a yes or a no is quite straightforward on that. And there must be someone in Ernst & Young who knows the answer to that. So why haven't they told us? It's just very frustrating, isn't it?
Yep.
Thank you.
With due respect, Councillor Dowling, this may be more of a question for the assets team, but yeah, if David will do his best, maybe we should take it away and come back with a written answer with the facts and the figures on, might be more helpful. Is that possible, do you think, David? Yeah, you'd be happy with that?
But any answer at all will be very welcome.
Well, I might join you on asking for that, okay? Because you've stolen the thunder of one of mine. Yes. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Page 13, I always go to the risk registers because they make me very uncomfortable, risk registers, especially when there's fours. That makes me very worried. So when you're looking at, so it's page 13, when you're looking at the likelihood, and it's a 4, so being the highest likelihood, so it's very likely to happen. And then the impact obviously is quite significant as well. I would like to see some more detail to that. So obviously we have a report and we've got it broken down into the different areas, but it's almost like actions for me. So it's the Baber one which worries me most because it's the only one with a 4 on likelihood. So it's Baber District Council may expose itself to financial risk through its own subsidiary companies and other commercial activities. And then there's a sort of the standard response as it is for Mid-Suffolk on those big key areas. But for us, that doesn't really tell us what are the actual actions. And I know we don't get involved in the operational side of that, but when you've got something with such a high likelihood, I would really like to say, right, we now need to focus in on this, and these are the actions that the team are taking, because we need to proactively move, given that likelihood. So is that happening? Can we see it? That sort of thing, really.
Yeah, so some of those risks are very high at the moment. And one of the main contributing reasons for that is because we don't know what's going to happen with the finance settlement, and we won't know until December. So that's why Melissa has put those scores as so high, because of the uncertainty around the fair funding review. So once we've had that information and we've run the numbers in December, then Melissa will then revisit those scores. Obviously, we are going through quite the big budget exercise at the moment. And we're doing an update to Mid-Suffolk on Friday, and we had an update last week or week before to Baber as well. So we are engaging regularly with the cabinets and going through a weekly update as well with SLT on where we're at with the budget.
So that's great. Obviously, that stuff is happening. But for sort of assurance purposes, is there an action log around something that is likelihood 4, that is either going to cabinet, that is saying, right, this is a likelihood, we are now hitting this, we know we've got to wait to December, we know we've got to wait to whenever, but is that happening? Are you getting that in cabinet? Is that something that we can see? Because I personally would feel that it needs that level of monitoring, if you see what I mean.
Councillor Pearson, yes?
Thank you, Chair. During my briefing with Melissa and David on Friday, one of the main points about this risk is the not knowing the settlement position until late December, and there's absolutely nothing. Melissa explained that she's tried looking at all sorts of different models and what have you to get a feel for it, but it's just not possible because it's so uncertain at the moment. So until that's done, there's not a lot of actions that can be taken until the government tells us what they're thinking.
Yes. Well, I could ask a question myself. Is it normally that much down to the wire? Because we're only waiting for a 1-year settlement, aren't we? It's not the 2 or 3 we've been asking for. Yeah, I can see how it makes things difficult for you, and I can see why Councillor Baker's asking the question. But, yep. Well, we will know probably as soon as you. Do you want to comment further, David?
Yeah, so it will be. We have had 1-year settlements for numerous years, which has created a lot of uncertainty. In response to the point around like kind of action logs and things like that, I'll speak to our risk colleagues, Teresa mainly, and see what evidence we collect. Because I don't specifically know that at this point, but I'm sure there is something. But.
Okay, sounds like we're doing the best we can. Councillor Matheson, please.
Yeah, I share that concern and understand the answer, and I wonder if we should just reiterate that if the government was providing rolling 3-year settlements, then we would not be needing to have these conversations every year, effectively, because we'd always know at least what the answer was in the current year, what the settlement was going to be. Yeah, I think that's already local government association policy as well anyway, but no harm in just reiterating that again.
Okay, it's not the answer we all want to hear, is it? We are where we are, I guess. Councillor Rowe, please.
On page 23, partly asking this just so it makes it clearer than it is in the papers. Amid Suffolk Growth Limited, it talks about phase 2 of the development has been cancelled, but doesn't really explain what the phase 2 of which development, where, or doesn't really give much context in what that paragraph, or the second half of that paragraph relates to.
Yep, so this relates to the offices, so the Needham offices that Midsuffolk used to have. So it's what were the plans for the phase 2 development there, but we can draw that out more in the paper.
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I need to declare an interest as the director of Mid-Suffolk Growth Limited, but I am. There's neither a risk or an opportunity or anything left there, because the land is actually owned by the council, not by the company. The actual site was not transferred over, and the part that has been phase 1, the land was disposed of sort of in parallel with the development, and you see there's a profit from phase 1, yeah. So the main uncertainty left really is just the extent to which money's been put into the demolition and preparatory works, as to whether that will be recovered fully or less when the land itself is actually sold. So that's that's the rest of the explanation of what that it's just there's much there as we can say at the moment, which is.
Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Register, please, a question.
Yes, so same issue. Is that cancelled because you've just seen how badly it went with Baber and the Baber growth and their linkage with Norse and redevelopment of their council site? Or was it just a decision that you probably just couldn't, somebody worked out you couldn't make any money out of it?
Councillor Register, is that a councillor? Is that a question for? Is that a question for?
Councillor Whitehead. It's independent of the. It's independent of what the Baber Growth Limited, development, etc. Our development partner did not want to go ahead, and we, our cabinet decided we did not want to go ahead on without them. So so we weren't looking over the road to the Baber. No.
Yeah.
Any more questions before we go to debate? Councillor Whitehead, you were first. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I had one question, but now I've got two questions. Because if there's a loss on the Needham Market site when it's sold, not these costs incurred, will have to be written off. is that the same debate as the 3 million at Baber, whether it's immediate or spread? Is the first question.
How to answer that? I suppose I'll have to get some advice on that. I'm not, don't know at this point.
I think maybe it should come to us mid-meeting, and maybe it'll be a matter arising for the December meeting as well. You're happy with that? Okay, do you had a second question?
It seems to be the same sort of issue as a Babel, and albeit on a lower magnitude than 3 million. That's why I asked the question. No, the second question is page 23, and this is the table 7. Just a bit confused. I've only just realised this. That it's saying that the investment limit for any group of pooled funds is 5 million. So is that an initial investment limit or an investment risk? I mean, for example, CCLA, we put 5 million in, which I know has gone south a bit. But are we saying that if the CCLA goes over 5 million in its value, it'll then be in breach of these investment limits?
No, so it's just the initial investment. Because obviously that could grow in terms of capital, but that's obviously outside of our control. So it's just the initial investment.
I wonder if that might be made more clear in future, because it could be either, couldn't it?
Yeah, that's fine. We can add that in for clarity.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Riley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's better. Can I take everybody back to page 17, please? Which is, and again, it's table 1. Our external borrowing is expected to be 138 million by the 31st of March, and as of September, it was 116 million in table 2. Is this jump sort of a seasonal expectation, or are there some nasties in the woodwork?
Well, I mean, we can't anticipate nasties in the woodwork, but so it's based on our cash flow, so based on the capital programme, and this covers total council as well, so it's not just general funds, so it will cover any programmes that we have in the HRA as well. So it's based on the kind of the capital programme that we're forecasting for the financial year.
Right, thank you. Right.
To the debate then, please. It's up for noting, isn't it? Any further debate, or should we go direct to the vote? You happy, John?
Yeah.
Yep, okay then. Bethany, if you... Yes, we need to move to the vote. Well, I'll propose it from the chair, so I need a second. Councillor Register, thank you. Can we add... just about Baber growth, or across the...
If we've made a deficit on the market side, would it be treated the same?
Yes,
yeah. So
it's just a separate item,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I thought it would be included in our work generally, that we're going to ask, because it's all of us together. We've all got an interest in this, surely. Or am I asking too much?
You can add it to the recommendation if you'd like, but you need to change the word.
Well, it'll be in the minutes, won't it?
It'll be in the minutes that you discussed.
Yes. So are Baber councillors and everyone happy with that? Because, yes, it is a bone of contention. I think we all understand. And I think we'd all like clarity, to be honest. Yeah. Councillor Rowe?
I think it'd be better to have it as a recommendation than just in minutes, just because they'll formalities work, because then we can follow it up slightly better than if it's just we talked about it, as we all, most of us seem to have questions about it that we would like. So.
Yes. So it'll be included in the minutes, which I think is probably the right way. Okay. So it's been proposed and seconded. Councillor Baker?
Sorry, I don't think that was what Miles meant. Am I correct, Miles, that you were actually asking for that to be a recommendation? So not for it just to be in the minutes, but for it to be a recommendation?
Yes.
So is that what's going to happen?
That was what I asked for, actually, but then I think for that we'd need a separate vote, wouldn't we?
Is that of interest?
Or if we're all willing to accept that about that, I think it could just be in... it could be worded so it applies to both councils, really, couldn't it? We are a joint committee, after all.
I can get some wording together and we can redo the vote with that and the recommendation.
Yes. I think I just want it in there somewhere because this is not the first time we visited it, is it? It keeps coming up, and I think I would like to see some facts and figures, as Councillor Dowling has asked for, because I was going to actually ask for that myself, so I do feel strongly about it. So Beth would just do a little bit of magic, I presume, and it's for good, because another time it could come up on the other side, and we are...
So the additional recommendation that I've got together is that report on Baber growth and Mid-Suffolk growth be brought to the committee as soon as reasonably possible.
Yes.
Is that...
Yes.
Oh.
That feels a little loose. Can we put some timelines on that? Because as soon as reasonably possible, you know, even to review it and there's nothing at that point, but it's just to keep bringing it back, otherwise we could not look at this for several months. It's just about trying to tie some of this stuff down. Yeah. And yeah, and I have lots of questions in other ways actually, but I might need a conversation with somebody. So I think we'll leave it at that, and perhaps we'll have a conversation afterwards. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I've changed the wording from as soon as reasonably possible to ahead of the next meeting. So that everyone happy with that?
Yes, I think that comes.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress.
Thank you, Bethany. I'm sorry to spring that on you, but it may happen again.
Councillor Riley, do you want me to take your vote verbally? For 3.1 and the additional recommendation.
Yeah.
Can I take your vote verbally, Councillor Riley? Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That is 9 votes for, and that's unanimous.
On to the second paper of the meeting, 2514, Internal Audit Report. We have John Snell to run us through this, so the floor is yours, John, please, as and when ready.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. So the report that you have in front of you today is to inform you of the work undertaken by Internal Audit for the first half year, and to also provide you with a review of the variety and the scope of projects and corporate activities which are supported through the work of the team. In terms of progress, overall I believe that reasonable progress has been made against the annual plan of the work which was approved by yourselves in April 25, and I also expect to complete sufficient work to enable me to provide you with a robust audit opinion in June 26. Based on the work completed to date, I consider that in general the control environment continues to be robust. However, where the audit has identified areas requiring improvement, the audit team have worked positively with management to agree appropriate corrective actions and a timescale for improvement. One such example which was brought to this committee quite recently was around bank reconciliations, where we did a follow-up at the request of members. That has been successfully completed, and we've worked closely with David and Melissa in terms of moving things forward, and there'll be further work during this particular area of work next year. There are also a number of audits which are at draft stage, so though good progress has been made, actually it doesn't tell you the true picture. We have about 4, and we've now had 5 reports that are at draft stage waiting management responses, And we've just issued a final one, which is quite pertinent because David was talking about Treasury management, and we've just undertaken that and finalised the report, and I'm pleased to report that's come out as reasonable assurance. So that's testament to the work that David and the finance team have undertaken. That full report will come, excuse me, at year end as well. In terms of probity, I just want to touch on what's recently happened with the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act 2023. They introduced a new corporate criminal offence entitled Failure to Prevent Fraud, and this became effective from the 1st of September. This legislation holds organisations, including local authorities, criminally liable if it's found that a person associated with them commits a specified fraud offence intending to benefit the organisation or its clients, unless the organisation had reasonable procedures in place to prevent fraud. Now, the types of fraud that they're referring to is false accounting, theft, and conspiracy to fraud. I'm pleased to report that the councils are well placed to meet the requirements of this new directive, having already implemented a robust framework of governance, internal controls, and fraud prevention measures. With established policies and staff training, the councils can clearly demonstrate a proactive approach to identifying and mitigating fraud risks. Our commitment to transparency, accountability, and continuous improvement ensures we are in the main not only compliant with the current regulatory expectations, but also the adaptability to evolve to legal requirements such as this directive. So as such, we're in a strong position to evidence that reasonable procedures expected under that directive, thereby significantly reducing the council's exposure to potential liability. Following on from that, we're also working actively with our legal and procurement teams to ensure that all contracts and third-party suppliers are fully aware of their responsibilities under the Failure to Prevent Fraud Directive. And this includes reviewing and updating relevant contract terms, developing clear guidance, and ensuring appropriate due diligence is in place during procurement processes. In terms of business support activities, this also includes areas such as the production of the annual governance statement, which obviously I'm heavily involved with, and again, which is brought to this committee for approval and sign-off. I also attend the Statutory Officers Working Group to provide appropriate professional determination on governance issues as they arise. And on the counter-fraud stuff, that we provide you with an annual report at year-end entitled Managing the Risk of Fraud and Corruption. I also sit on the AI Governance Board, and my role there is to help and support that AI systems align with ethical principles, legal requirements, and organisation values. Moving on to the global internal audit standards, we have reviewed our working practices to ensure that the internal audit documents and processes comply with and can be evidence to those new standards which came into effect from the 1st of April. And these changes and the implications thereof were actually reported to this committee back in April 2025. As the head of internal audit, I reported at the time that we'd undertaken a self-assessment against those new standards using the Institute of Internal Auditors Self-Assessment Toolkit. And whilst the bulk of standards had been complied with, there were some areas for improvement, and these were detailed in an action plan and again reported back to you in April. So what I've done today is, again, within this report that you have in terms of Appendix B, you'll see that I've highlighted those actions that were to take place, and I'm pleased to report that all but 2 have been successfully completed, demonstrating significant progress towards full compliance against those standards. The 2 that are outstanding will be actually actioned by my director, Sarah Wilcox, and they will be directed at the chairs of this committee, both Councillors Hurren and Matheson, and they will then be signed off. There are no additional audit matters arising from this report, so I'm happy to take questions at this stage. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much for that, John. Yeah, it's a factual report, which I'm pleased to receive, and yes, it made quite good reading. I particularly welcome the failure to prevent fraud legislation. We did talk about it in the briefing. That's been a long time coming. Does that apply to all levels of government, including national, but I presume not parish councils?
Not parish councils, just the local authorities at this stage. So whether that would be rolled out at a later stage, I don't know. But certainly, as far as we're concerned, that reflects on us and it holds us accountable.
Mm-hmm. And obviously the buck stops with you, but also every level throughout this council, doesn't it? That is correct, isn't it?
Yes, Councillor. So it's not just about the councils themselves, but it's also about officers as well, individual officers. So criminal procedures could be taken about individual officers, not just against the council as a whole. It's unlikely because one will go hand in hand with the other, but there is accountability with individual officers, and hence why that we've been very proactive in terms of ensuring that our policies and procedures and staff training are up to date.
And I presume to ask elected councillors as well.
There's responsibility on all. Yep.
Thank you for that. And the other thing, I don't have the page now, but general question. You said that the LGR situation is making you a lot of work. I suppose everything is taking a bit longer, or you've got to think about the future as well as what you're doing at the present. I would think that's correct, isn't it? I think my question is, are other things suffering as a result of that?
It's a very good question, Councillor. Not at the moment, but clearly as things hot up with LGR, as we get closer to 2028, things will start to change. We've also got resources, pressures, financial pressures as well. So there, as the head of audit, I'm also very mindful of those. And obviously when I develop the plan for next year, there'll be emphasis around that. And obviously that plan will be signed off by yourselves as well as senior management. So I'm acutely aware that possibly procedures, systems may change as we get closer to 2028. So I need to be very mindful of that and obviously do a risk assessment in terms of the work that we do as we move forwards.
I think things will, not may, they will change, won't they? But okay, well, we rely on you to shout if they change too drastically, I think. It's going to change for all of us. Okay, questions from the committee, please. Yes, Adrienne, you had your hand up very far away.
Page 39, you're referring in paragraph 4.2 to the council's... Page 39. You're referring to the council's delivery as the council's delivery programme continues and reshapes and transforms its services. There is a typo just there on the third line of it. It'll be likely to increase rather than likely to increase. But also it... but it is also sort of talking there about unplanned delivery and having an effect on the delivery of audit programmes, but there isn't anything in the risks on page 41 to indicate that. It does say audit programme slippage isn't likely to be affected, so I think that's sort of slightly contradictory. I don't think you can absolutely predict that would be the case. So I just wonder whether there should be sort of an extra risk put in regarding to that.
Yeah, it's a very good question, Councillor, as it's something we touched on our brief. One, thank you very much indeed for bringing up likely and likely. Oversight on my part, apologies. But you're quite right in terms of audit slippage. At the moment, it's very manageable. We did talk about the scoring as well, whether that would increase from unlikely to sort of more likely, if that makes sense. It's just something that I need to be very mindful of. And we just spoke about LGR as we fast approach LGR, that there will be some changes. So in terms of slippage, there possibly could be some slippage as things change. So I certainly take your point, but I also need to be mindful at the moment. I'm comfortable with the risks, but next year that might be something that I will probably need to revisit and perhaps put in an additional risk. So I do take your point on board, Councillor.
Okay, just a couple more questions regarding page 46, the housing audit. You're saying although BMSDC has managed the process for several years, there are no documented procedures to ensure business continuity or management oversight in the officer's absence. And you talk about a new officer starting. So we'll be sort of updated on this in the future after this officer starts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know when that officer, what situation that is at the moment. At the time of the writing, that's what the writing report has it stood. So I don't know if there's been any further development in that area, Councillor.
Okay, and a similar question on page 47 about the currently members' inquiries are not centrally logged or monitored, though a system is planned but not yet operational. So again, when this system is more on the way or becomes operational, I presume we'll be updated about that.
Yes. What normally happens, Councillor, is that once we issue a report of this type of nature, all the recommendations go into our performance management system, Pentana, which you may or may not be familiar with. So that's a way of monitoring all those recommendations. So where you will see our reports there, we would expect then the owner of that recommendation to update that recommendation and to close it off with evidence. And that will come through on the annual audit report next year.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I have two topics, and one is the bank reconciliations, and the other one was around the fraud aspects. Firstly, on the bank reconciliation, I wanted to bring forward the question that I had from last time. So it's great there's reasonable assurance, it's been looked at. The question that I asked last time round was if there had been any unreconciled items, any known items. So often there's a batch, there's a list of things that it just doesn't add up. There's money in there, there's money gone out, there's money come in, and we don't know. And that does happen in different organisations. And if that's left to roll, it can get very messy, and we have problems. So my question really is, did you find any of that? Was the value material? Has it been sort of written off and put to a side? And have we got processes in place that we are not going to build that again? The reason I say this in more of a certainty that there probably are unreconciled items is that I've seen it a lot, so it's not an unusual thing to happen. So that's one of my questions.
Yeah, I think probably David and I can sort of almost answer that together. So all very, very good questions. So in terms of the follow-up work, so we've now got assurances that procedures and policies are now far more robust and are in place. And one of the areas that we would look at, and the point that you were making, is around like suspense account. So where you can't reconcile something, it then goes into a suspense account, and obviously that will be part of our testing, and we haven't found that. And where it is, then it's actually then resolved. So we look at the following month and the following month and the month before, so we can see a sort of an audit trail. So I know as a result of the limited assurance report that came out and the follow-up work, David and his team, and you've also appointed a new member of staff that oversees the whole reconciliation process. So I think we're in a far stronger position than we were, and we will be doing some more work later this financial year, again, to revisit some of those issues. But I know confident, and hopefully David will support that those procedures are now far more robust, and with a dedicated officer overseeing it, I feel more comfortable than I was.
Yes, I'd agree with that. We haven't had any material items in suspense accounts either, so which is really good.
That's really good. And then could I move on to the second thing? The other thing was about the fraud sort of arrangements. I forget what page that was on. Page 43. So obviously referring to officers and councillors and people involved. Does this? I'm assuming that this would extend to the organisations that we are funding. Yeah.
Absolutely, and also third parties, and also our growth companies as well. Gateway 14 as well, CIFCO. So we would look to see that, and we've already had conversations with Emily ATAC as well in terms of what due diligence checks that they perform. Several years ago, we did some work around their governance arrangements, and they were quite strong. We haven't done that for a while, but we are working with Emily to provide that level of assurance that they are up to speed with that particular directive as well.
So as councillors, it's something we found, we've actually flagged quite a lot of issues, concerns to officers through locality and through organisations that we're working with. And in my feeling, it's when we, at that point of giving the money to organisations and when they're setting up or when they're putting a new scheme in place, we kind of assume that these organisations have the knowledge of, you know, what's right, what's wrong, you know, really what shouldn't happen, how they best reconcile these things, how they manage their funds, you know, what we expect to see from them. And I don't know if they have a full understanding when they enter into taking money from local authority about what the requirements are. So there is a funding summit coming up on the 6th of November, I think, which is part hosted by sort of Baber and Mid Suffolk, at Elmswell, Blackbourne Community Centre. And I was wondering if you know if there is a section in there or if there's been provision around sort of financial management. So, because I think that would be a prime opportunity to say to these organisations, this is what we require of you, these are the things that are going to get you in trouble, you know, because we kind of have to hit it before they get to that point, if that makes sense.
I mean, it's a very valid question. I'm not aware that that's part of it, to be brutally honest. Where I would be concerned with, in terms of the funding we give, what due diligence checks and processes that we have to get that level of assurance before the money is passed over. That's where I would be more concerned. So if we have the robust procedures in place, then I'm more than comfortable. I know exactly where you're coming from, Councillor. In terms of ethical behaviour of others, hopefully, through our own checks, we would hopefully provide that level of assurance. But if we give the money and somebody runs away with it, so to speak, it's very difficult. And we just hope that the organisation that we're giving to it, they have ethical standards, but unfortunately that's outside of our powers. We just need to make sure before that money is released, that we are comfortable that there's a strong business case, that there are governance arrangements in place, and obviously that we would undertake site visits.
I think to be fair, John, we've got a very good record on that, haven't we? The money we were allocated for the COVID years and things, we seem to have got balances and checks that nothing was wasted, I think. But it doesn't mean we should be complacent. I take Councillor Baker's point.
Absolutely, we shouldn't do. You know, we should all assume that it's nice to think that everybody's honest, but we know, unfortunately, that's not the case. But then that comes back to those checks and balances that we perform before we release monies, particularly grant monies, which I think, you know, obviously, Councillor Baker, you're referring to. And yes, we've had some instances in the past, but we learn from that. But sometimes they're outside of our control.
Yes, we just have to be very vigilant. Yes, Councillor Whitehead, please, and then Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, so I'm a bit confused regarding the General Ledger Bank reconciliation. We had the end of last year's report, and at that stage, that audit was in draft. And then we've now got the half year, this new half year, which has the follow-up. But on the 3rd of July, we had an email to all members, to all committee members saying, it's just gone off now, but just a minute, it was basically saying that the audit had now been concluded with a limited assurance recommendation or conclusion. So it just feels to me that in terms of formal reporting as opposed to verbal updates, this one seems to have almost been put through the shredder because we had a follow-up one since, and there's no reference anywhere to this limited assurance one.
closely with David and Melissa. So as far as I was aware, that we'd actually undertaken your request to do the follow-up as quickly as we could, and I think that was done in July, the end of July. Seems to ring a bell in terms of sign-off, but also with the provision that we were going to revisit it later in the year again, just to provide members with that assurance. So hopefully at year end you'll get another report on those reconciliations.
Very quickly, and remedial work was done.
Sorry, just feel that, say, for the formal record, there's the yearly report, and then there's a half-year report, then the next yearly report. Somewhere along the line, we had a limited assurance audit, but it doesn't seem to feature in any of those reports. Everything's green. That's the point I'm making.
We did report it was limited, and then we also reported that it was actually that when we did the follow-up work that we were happy with that the recommendations that obviously we'd put to David and Melissa and the finance team had actually been fulfilled.
Councillor Rowe, please.
Going back to Councillor Baker's point, I also think there's partly about the funding, because it's not been huge numbers, but there's been a couple of bits which have raised concerns. But we also struggle to actually get applications sometimes. So do you do things not just checking stuff, but checking how we support people to be able to provide do what we need for our due diligence? So, like, there'll be training through Community Action Suffolk, and I'm also wondering about, you mentioned contractors and things. Are we making sure that we don't put in barriers to kind of smaller businesses that we'd want to work with, without kind of them providing support to go, this is what we need to do, but we would want to not exclude them if they're able to once they're supported.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So you don't want to preclude perhaps smaller businesses that don't have that infrastructure with the larger companies. So we're asking them to do the same sort of level of a checks, and they don't have that. So interestingly, we're doing a piece of work on contract management that question was raised. So that's going to be fed into our questioning, particularly with the procurement and commissioning head of service, whether she has noticed or whether service areas have said that basically suppliers have come to them saying, sorry, it's too bureaucratic, it gives us an unfair advantage. So that's a question that we are raising with the procurement team.
Yes, last coming back to the Prevention of Fraud, etc. Acts. This is paragraph 4.2 on page 43. I couldn't get my head round. It appears to be specifically outlining or describing a fraud committed to benefit the council, but it surely isn't excluding things which are much more likely to happen, where fraud is aimed at benefiting somebody outside the council. And I mean, is that just kind of the way that's worded?
Yes, Councillor, that's actually almost lifted from the actual directive itself. So apologies for their wording, if you like, but what it's implying is that potentially internal people, internal staff, or even members, dare I say, could benefit. So from companies, if they're not declared, you could try and influence the council to use them, and they would benefit from an internal point of view. But it is more aligned to outside fraud. But that's the wording that is used by the directive. So I really apologise.
There isn't something hiding there that's obscure. It is just about frauds in general. A couple of others then. I thought the community, this is page 45, the 5.1.2, the community section. I thought that was quite interesting in the idea of extending the need and requirement for safeguarding beyond the council itself, down into our contractors and our partners and the supply chain. I was wondering where I see it's consultancy work. Who kind of thought that was a good thing to do then?
So that would have been as a result of conversations that I had with SLT members. So when I go to, every year when I'm developing the audit plan, I would always go to individually, and we speak about potential risks. This was something that was coming up, and it was deemed appropriate given the high sensitivity of safeguarding generally in terms of not only members but officers, but also, as I said, the contractors that we work with. So we decided, because it was relatively new in terms of the consultation, we would treat it as consultancy work and provide an overview of what our thoughts were in terms of our recommendations moving forward, rather than actually was giving it an audit opinion at this stage, which seems slightly unfair. So they're the recommendations that we've made, but it comes under the umbrella of consultancy work as opposed to giving it an audit opinion.
Thank you. Yes, on the points that Councillor Baker's been raising, it seems as if there's quite a variety of strands really of where we're giving out money and grants and so forth. I was thinking that there's somewhere we've got a service level agreement, which we hope that they report back so we can see that they are actually fulfilling what we've given them the money for. And then, there's the sort of one-off capital grants, which is a bit different again. And then we come down to our council and locality money, where it's more informal and the onus is rather more on individual members. So I was just wondering what bits of that you're looking at, really. As I say, there's a multifarious degrees of need. I mean, you need to adjust it a bit to how much money, but also what kind of relationship it is and that sort of thing. So
So in terms of grants, you're quite right, it's quite far-reaching, but in terms of the work that we've done locally on grants is more about grants where we receive an application and we give it to sort of a local application, and we will actually issue the grants money. But it comes back to the application process, helping develop communities to put together good, sound applications, business cases. So that's where we've concentrated on, rather than yourselves of having locality budgets. And again, the emphasis is on you as members to make sure the reasons that you're giving that money are genuine. But also coming back to the grants that we issue in terms of invoices that we receive, to make sure they're genuine invoices. And again, coming back to Councillor Baker, going out to do the site visits to make sure that money has been sent as well. So there's lots of checks and balances, and I think they've improved immensely under that team that issues those grants. Bigger grants we don't tend to touch at that stage in doing audit work, but that's something that we could do in the future. Some of those grants where it requires sign-off either by the Chief Executive or the Section 151 Officer Director of Finance, or even myself, we would then do work on that. So the disablement grant facilities, we do an annual report on that, because money is coming from central government, it goes to Suffolk County and then gets distributed. So before I have to sign a declaration that money has been sent correctly, so that's just another element So it's wide. It is wide in terms of the types of grants we receive, but for the majority of it, it's those grant applications that we receive from our communities that we concentrate on, or have done.
Thank you. Yes, and yeah, I think the final one really, I guess, what we ought to ask. 5.2, page 47, audit work in progress. Noting that some of them are at the draft report stage, perhaps you could just reassure us all that there aren't any nasty things going to creep out like we had, previously. There was something that hadn't quite reached the finishing point, but was heading for limited assurance at best.
I'm not being evasive, but I wouldn't want to comment at this stage because they are draft reports. So they could be challenged by management if we've got our findings wrong. So I wouldn't want to say openly in this forum, actually, they're all fine, they're all reasonable assurance. So what I would rather do is wait until we've got the management responses before issuing that report at year end. But as you know, members, if there is anything that comes up limited assurance, then you will find out before the end of year, as you did with the bank reconciliation. So you will be kept informed, and I know you also be informed, as is Councillor Ward as well. So if we find anything, particularly with the financial field where we've got real concerns, you will find out before the year end. Okay, so at least you have a heads up. But it would be unfair to me to comment before I've had those management discussions.
Yeah, I think I'm not asking for a preview of what it's going to say, but more that there isn't anything that might become a problem. It's this thing about the evidence of absence of evidence, etc., etc. There isn't any actual evidence that's heading in the wrong direction that you've seen so far.
What I will say, and it is very much subject, so please don't sort of quote me on this, there are a couple of those reports in there where there are some concerns that could lend itself to limited assurance, but I don't want to nail my colours to the mast until I've had those management conversations, because we may have misinterpreted something. So I understand when you're trying to, I don't want to be pushed into a corner and then come back to you and said, actually, we've got some issues. We may have some issues, but they need to be resolved. And whether that emanates into a limited assurance, I'd rather not say at that moment. I'm not being deliberately evasive, because if it is, then you will be, it gets reported to you directly.
No, I mean that's fine. If you were able to sit there and say, well, I haven't seen any evidence, then that's fine. And if you're saying, well, there are concerns, well, that's fine as well. Carry on with the work. We'll hear about it.
But that evidence might suddenly come to light. We may not have
looked
in the right place.
Until you get to the end.
And I could say, it's fine, and then find that actually it's not fine. So hence why I'm slightly reticent to give you a definite yes or no at this stage.
Work in progress.
Yeah, I get what it means.
Okay, 3 more questions. Councillor Riley, you were next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I go back to bank reconciliations? Are they done electronically, or are they a manual tick?
No, it's electronic. Sorry, electronic.
Electronic, good.
Yeah.
So
there are some checks and balances as well, some oversight as well. That's obviously non-automated, if you like, because there is that oversight. But yes, generally, yes, they are.
So how often is the reconciliation button pressed?
Yeah, monthly.
Monthly?
Yeah. As I would expect.
Yeah, so in that case then, the next question is fairly obvious, is how long would it take Reconciliations Department to identify a fraud?
A fraud, a month.
Monthly, yeah. Are you happy with that?
I'm comfortable with that arrangement, and certainly before the follow-up and the assurances that David, Melissa and the reconciliation team, I had concerns, hence why it was a limited assurance. We've now got those controls in place, and as I said to you before as well, we are going to be revisiting that area, but I've got assurance as well that the work processes that David has developed will provide a much more robust system and oversight within that reconciliation process.
No, monthly. Well, thank you. My next question is on the Corks Lane projected deficit. We would normally, under general accounting principles, recognise a loss as it goes on. You know, as we identify a loss, so we would account for it, you know, and make provision. We're actually carrying our losses forward, aren't we? If I understand it rightly.
I'll probably defer that to the trusted accountant as opposed to the auditor.
Because we haven't sold any of the properties yet on Corks Lane, we haven't recognised any losses yet, and this is very strongly linked to the conversation we were having at the start of the meeting around how we can treat those losses if they do crystallise, as to whether we recognise them, you know, in one hit, or whether we can spread those over the 30 years that Arlen Close have suggested that we might be able to, and this is the conversation that we need to have with Ernst & Young, our auditors, which I have chased them up on already.
So our auditors, have they given us a view yet as to whether we can carry the losses forward?
No, not yet. I have chased them up on that with hope to get a response sooner rather than later.
I think we were supposed to have a response in August from memory.
Well, we haven't at the moment, so I've chased them.
So we're carrying on. Sorry, as you say, you know, no losses have yet crystallised. On the other hand, they are forecast to crystallise. You know, and the question really is whether we take our losses property by property, or whether we just say, hey, you know, we're not going to build on the car park because it's floodplain. Yeah, and take our 3 million hit now.
We will do it property by property, because obviously, you know, if we can secure more sale proceeds, then that will reduce any, you know, any losses that we may make.
Okay, fair enough. So, let me go back to the auditor then. Are you comfortable that we're not following SIPCA and, as I mentioned somewhere here, normal accounting procedures?
Yeah, I am comfortable with the professionalism of David and Melissa, and also the finance team, but also there's also reliance placed on our external auditors to undertake the work.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There's been a bit of conversation about limited assurance and reasonable assurance. Are there any bits, well, I might not be able to say specific bits, but do we aim to get to substantial assurance for any areas, or is it really practically there'll always be little bits and pieces, so reasonable assurance is what is standard, what councils get?
I think even talking to my counterparts, it's very much similar, that as a general rule, it's very difficult to get substantial assurance. We tend to find something, whether it's like minor or not, and if it's something even minor, then it can't be substantial assurance. The reason why I'm sometimes reluctant to give substantial assurance is I can't check 100% of the transactions. I'm only doing a sample. So it's almost caveated. There are occasions when we do systems types audits where we find everything is perfect. And then we would give that and recognise that as substantial. As a general rule, you don't tend to see that many, not just with Baber and Mid Suffolk, right across the country. When I've looked at other reports and when I talk to my counterparts in Suffolk, it's very far and few between. It's not to say that we are failing in any way, it's just as an auditor's opinion, it's very difficult to give substantial assurance when we don't test everything from, say, cradle to grave, if that makes sense.
Yep, that makes it. That's kind of what I thought, but I just wanted to check.
Going back to fraud, does it relate to SIL awards?
Sorry.
SIL payments, SIL awards?
Yeah, we have undertaken audits in the past with SIL payments.
Okay, so here's a scenario which I will defer from saying is real, but if a member has doubts about a SIL award that they are consulted on to an organisation, but has been assured by other officers it should be okay, when those misgivings are realised later, is there a better way for a member to raise or register those misgivings as a potential for possibly fraud or possibly just other problems with that award?
I think that was the case, then I would expect that member to have the evidence to support that, because purely it's an allegation. If there is an allegation of fraud particularly, then you would come through to myself, or you could come through to Tom Barker as the monitoring officer. But as a general rule, in terms of fraud, you'd probably come to me first. I would then obviously have to look at that particular individual case, and I would have to speak to some of those officers that are actually administrating the SIL process.
So for evidence, it would have to be in written form rather than verbal?
Ideally, unless they want to be anonymous, but then I would say, why would you want to be anonymous? If the council's got any general concerns about fraudulent activity, whether it's alleged or whether you have hard evidence, then yes, that needs to come through to me. There's also the whistleblowing issue that you could go down, but I would prefer as a member that you came and spoke to me directly. Ideally, put it in writing so I've got a record of it, because what I want to see is the evidence supported by that allegation so I can investigate it, or I can dismiss it if I don't feel that there's a case to answer. But that would be down to me and obviously that member, and then I would probably speak to other recognised officers that weren't part of that to keep it on a need-to-know basis.
Thank you. So I just wanted to follow up on a point that Councillor Whitehead made earlier about some of the reports, and I've tried to follow this through myself, and I'm in a bit of a pickle in relation to the reports that have been submitted and what we might be missing, or if we haven't had kind of a final. So obviously when we met some months ago, we did have it was a draft, BMSDC draft internal audit report, financial year 24-25. And we had that was in, was that July? I'm not forget when that was. Oh, 26th of June it was issued. We then had some issues with that report, and then I think they went away and did some work very quickly around those bank reconciliations. We had a limited assurance sort of overall assessment at that point as well, and now we've skipped forward to a report, as sort of Councillor Whitehead was saying, that we're sort of seeing today, and it just feels like there is gaps sort of missing. We haven't seen the final of that report. The same areas are not perhaps being picked up, so the ones that were limited assurance, not all of them have been sort of repeated. So of course we've got at the very top, which was the bank reconciliations, which are now, reasonable assurance. But what was picked up on the limited assurance before was also the management of, just trying to find it here, it was the management oversight, which also had the limited assurance, which isn't featuring on this document now. So for my purposes, I'm just trying to get in my head how we can track these things, and actually keep an eye, find out what's missing, make sure that we've concluded reports thoroughly. We know we've got all of those, because I think they're all very valid points, you know, that Councillor Whitehead was making. And I couldn't track it myself. So
something that perhaps I need to take away and have a look at as we particularly move forwards in terms of if we get any more limited assurance. As I said, they will come to you, but also you would need then that assurance that we do the follow-up, and then that's reported back here. So depending on the severity, but it's normally, it will be done within sort of 3 to 6 months minimum, and then I can report that back to you. Now, what I'll probably do is I'll report back formally before the end of the year, if that makes sense, depending on timing, obviously, but at least then that sort of forms the circle that you're looking for. So I can take that away and act on that.
could we get that in some recommendation, so we've got that in, so we can formally chunk through this bit, you know, is that possible? So,
and correct me if I'm wrong, Bethany, was that recorded or reported when I started to agree what we would do? Because I think the question came up earlier about what do we do, and I don't know if it was you, Councillor Matherton, so you're to blame. So I thought we recorded what we would do, because I'll have to check my emails, but when I issued them, it was basically, I put a little preempt further to our discussions and agreement that I would, as head of audit, then provide you with those limited assurance reports almost straight away once the management response is. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, we can work on that, Councillor, but certainly, as I said, if we get any further ones, I'll do that, and we'll get the follow-up, and you'll get the report of that follow-up as well, if that makes sense. So, yeah, thank you.
I can confirm it certainly did come back to councillors, and yes, or to the chairs, definitely, yes. So we were aware of it, and I'm sure when you got a bit further, it was circulated all round, I'm sure.
If we can then re-emphasise, because going back to Councillor Baker, if we can put sort of in the minutes, again, that the head of internal audit has agreed and will continue to provide those limited assurances outside the normal reporting process, either the half-yearly or annual, with a follow-up, subject to timings. And I mean that because it could go into the next year, if that makes sense. But as soon as I've done the follow-up, then to report back.
Yeah, I think, John, it should be done on a need-to-know basis, definitely, yes. Oh, Councillor Whitehead, sorry, yes.
Well, my understanding was that if there was going to be an audit report with limited assurance or worse, that rather than wait 3 or 4 months to see it, like it was, for instance, here in October, we were just going to get the heads up. So we got the heads up in July that it was a limited assurance audit, which we felt was coming down the line into the October report, but because we were told about it in July, then it was followed up between July and October. That's why it seems to drop through the cracks somehow, and all we always see is a follow-up audit reported formally, but not the initial one. That was the point I was making before.
Yeah, that was exactly my understanding.
Yeah.
Councillor Baker?
Could I
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether the part of the answer to the, can't quite track it, etc., is that we just put into our papers agenda as necessary, information. I think scrutiny do something like that. You get their kind of their sort of follow-ups are reported to the committee. They don't necessarily, work. They don't have to do anything with them other than see them, that they're there, that they are then reassured that what they previously picked up is now dealt with. It's just whether, it's a question of getting it into the formal paperwork. I see Councillor Whitehead's nodding his head. Getting it into the formal paperwork so you can see it without Councillor Baker needing to thumb back through her inbox, etc. In these circumstances that we've you know, we've said, well, here's limited assurance. Yes, we'd like to know what's being done about it between meetings, which happens by email to the committee. But then the fact of that happening is just noted at the next full meeting in the agenda. It's just, does that sound?
Yeah, I think the point I'm making is that if we're given a heads up part way through, that shouldn't then give a default position that the limited assurance audit disappears from the next report. Just by getting a heads up, that's how it feels at the moment for this one.
Yeah, I think it's obviously the draft that we had on the 26th of June, it would be good that we need a final for that, because I think that was important, you know, because it still said draft, so we haven't seen a concluded, if you like, from that. Obviously, there was limited assurances that were part of that, so we had the extra paperwork, and then for this report that we have, only one of them has kind of been brought forward. The other one isn't listed as far as I can see, but it's making sure that we conclude these reports, but also I'm assuming they're publishable. I'm assuming that they're accessible to various people. So it's making sure that we conclude each point so the reports aren't just draft, they're finalised and that's it, and they're logged and they're logged and they're logged. And that would be where I would be at, so I can find them, really.
You're happy with that, John?
I'm happy to do that. It's a question of saying, as soon as there's a limited assurance, then I would send that to you, which I do now. Do the follow-up, and I can send that to you now. It's how do you want it? Do you want it through an email, or do you want to do it formally at the next appropriate committee meeting? That's up to you guys, how you want it.
Well, I think personally I'd like the heads up on it, know that you're working on it in between meetings to
Yeah,
put
but
it right.
you're going to get, say tomorrow I issue a limited assurance. Once that's been signed off by management and all agreed, I will then send that out to you
Yes, yes,
through an email.
yes.
Yeah,
I think so.
and you will, within that report you will see the implementation dates. So I can sort of say, right, as the implementation date is, say, next month, we would then go and do that follow-up to ensure that they've done it. And then I issue another report to provide that assurance, not only to myself as the head of audit, but also you as members, that those recommendations have been implemented. And then I issue, again, that report. Now, do you want that through an email, or do you want it at the next appropriate
Depends.
committee?
If the next meeting's only a week away, well, that's acceptable. But if it's sort of midway, an email, I think, would be appropriate.
Yeah, as I said, I'm happy. But I think we're getting really hung up over this, because what I don't want is to cause myself. I will do the work for you, obviously, and report it. It's how you want it reported. I will give you the follow-up report itself. And do you want it just noted, or do you want to make it more formalised, if you like, through the next meeting?
John's got a few anyway. Councillor Whitehead, yes.
Just to answer that question, I would think that any report that's been issued with a limited assurance would actually hit either the half-yearly or the final year report, because in your email of the 3rd of July you said, we have now concluded the audit work with management responses and the audit has been assessed as having an audit opinion and limited assurance. So there was an audit report with limited assurance that's been concluded but has not featured in what I call the public documentation, which is these two reports.
So are we all agree? Because I think Bethany needs to write this into the minutes. If there's a problem, we need to know it right away. Yes. And then if it's solved, we need to know that right away, so we've got progress. If it's urgent in between meetings, I would like you to send it via an email so we all know. But if it's only a week off our next meeting, well, you can report it then in your report anyway. Is that how we all see it? Yes.
It needs to be logged in the file, so you may get an update by
yes.
email, but you know, when you get a report, it needs to be continuously followed through so that we can track.
Yes.
Is that what we're saying? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming.
With same titles and so
Yes.
Miles was saying, so that we can follow things through.
Yes, I'm assuming, Councillor Baker, that would happen naturally, and I think John is understanding of that. Yep. Okay. Wow. Any more questions? Do we need a debate after that? Well, I propose that we move to the vote for this to be noting, and I propose the last one, so can I have a proposer and seconder, please? Councillor Register, we need somebody from Mid-Suffolk, really. Looking at you, John.
Councillor Baker's.
Oh, yep. Thank you. You'll be fine. It's nice to have a balance of one for each, whereas last time it was 2 Labour members, I think. Okay, Bethany, you're there before us, looks like.
So is this just for 3.1, with then the action for John to take away?
Yes, it's what we've just agreed. If you could find a quick form of words that, if anything of limited assurance John is worried about, he lets us know, basically.
I found from the meeting in October last year where you had basically the same debate. It wasn't a formal recommendation then, but it has been taken as an action, if that makes sense.
Yes. Well, I think if you
So
include in the minutes what we've just agreed, would you accept that? That seemed to be the best way of doing it, getting it. Because what we've just agreed will be in the minutes, I would hope, when you write them up, Beth. Councillor Baker?
So obviously we just want to move this on. We don't want to cause John any grief in any way, or anybody else. Obviously this was raised last year and we're still in this position. We need to make sure that kind of is picked up, because obviously what we're trying to interpret might not be very clear, you know, what we're trying to relay, what our wishes are. So I do feel a recommendation, because that way these things are logged. It's very difficult for us to keep hauling back through old minutes and recalling conversations from a long time ago. So I don't know how other people feel about that. Would you rather recommendation? Anybody else? I think clearer, if that's possible. Is that all right? Yeah.
So what you're saying, Councillor Baker, you want it all logged in the minutes as we've agreed?
Yes, but have a recommendation that that's what we will receive.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, is that all right?
So it means
Is
it's got
that
to be
possible?
quickly typed in. Yes, okay. So
And then,
yeah, let's give, maybe Bethany, when you've done it, if you could just read it out and we'll agree what you've written. You know, we'll give you a minute or two, it's quite important.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether help Beth to kind of go propose that we continue getting the kind of interim updates by email, but when there's reports published, it gets sent to the committee, and that the headings are consistent across all the reports, so we can track where things have gone from limited assurance to reasonable assurance.
Okay, so the wording that I've got together is that members continue to receive updates on audits rated at limited assurance following sign-off and completion, with the updates to reasonable assurance being included in the following audit report to the committee to show the progress.
Sounds right. That captures it, I think.
Sorry. Hang on, I need to edit a couple of words. Sorry. That members continue to receive updates on audits rated at limited assurance following sign-off and completion, with the updates to reasonable assurance being included in the following audit report to the committee to show the progress.
It's a rolling process, internal audit, so that's tricky, it's difficult for them to do, but I think you're sort of saying it's the whole process needs to be...
To show the full journey of the audit? Would that work better? Or?
Yes, it would for us. Yes, it would for us. Yeah. And yeah, with consistent headings, which they do. I think it's that there was the management thing that was missing from this one, and it remained as limited assurance, so we haven't seen a report on that this time. Do you see what I'm saying? So. Apologise, John and everybody else. I apologise.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Riley, would you like me to take your vote verbally? Thank you, Chair. That is 8 votes for and 1 abstention, so that's carried.
And thank you, Bethany, for mastering that so professionally. Last item, item 9, forward plan. Can I remind everybody it's 3 days before Christmas, but so if you really can't get to that meeting, try and find a sub, please, because there is quite a bit of meat there, so we do need to have a... Sorry about the timing, but that's the way the calendar falls. But is everybody happy with the work plan ahead?
Yeah, I mean...
You're not going to be here, are you?
No, well, that wasn't not what I was going to say. What I was going to say was that as we've been pressing the council, the officers generally about the difficult dates, with Melissa's help and Bethany and everybody, we've now got a significantly different set of dates for the committee for the 26-27 year, which I think you've all signed off at the recent full council meetings. So that's what's happening. The other thing I wanted to just say was I'm not happy that we haven't got a training date on there at the moment. I will further nag Peter Randall about that.
Okay, I'll leave that one to you then.
All right.
Yes, as already.
Thank you, Chair.
As already said, Councillor Mathen is away for a Christmas holiday, so we've agreed to swap. I'll do that one as well, and then he'll do the next one, which would have been mine. So, yeah, it's fine. I don't have much holiday, so I'm normally available. So, is it okay we agree this? Everyone's happy with the work? It will change. I could see 23rd of February is a bit light, but there will be budget things coming in then, I'm sure. It'll develop as we go along. Right, thank you for your forbearance. yeah, solid session and a worthwhile one. Thank you for attendance, and thank you to the officers for being here. And we try not to give you too bad a time, but I think you enjoy it really. And thank you to Councillor Pearson for sitting in as well. Have a good day.